For content warnings and a link to the written version of this chapter, please check the description below. This is the 9th chapter of A Doughnut from Cakeopia Serving 1 and is titled Genoise's Tongue. Before we get into the video, consider subscribing to my channel to see more content like this. Consider donating to my Cash App or my GoFundMe to help with my transition, and my commissions are also open, and you will be able to find the email to that down below. Now back to the story. It was the dead of night when Beedee returned to the cafe. The first thing she noticed coming through the door was that only 3 people were present. Cece, SJ and Cinna, all sat around a table quietly holding mugs of hot chocolate. Nothing strange there. If they weren't taking in sugar, they would surely be ill, for a sweet person needed their sugar to survive. For a moment, Beedee feared Blondie and Brownie had returned to the cafe and got to the others, but she was quickly relieved when she followed a loud snore over to Blackcurrant, who slept under a blanket on the floor beside his sister Apricot and a table, moved to make room for them. Pecan and Pumpkin snuggled together close by, and Blueberry Delight lay alone by the counter. She was always alone, that one. They all used a chair cushion as a pillow, so their heads weren't resting on the hard stone floor. "Come sit with us," Cece whispered, obviously trying not to wake the others. "We were beginning to worry about where you were," Cinna smiled warmly at Beedee, which did indeed warm her up from any coldness she had previously felt after coming in from the night air. Beedee took a seat, subtly moving in closer to Cinna, so she could take in his heavenly scent. She smiled at SJ from across the table and casually plonked the blueprints in the centre. They all looked at the blueprints in confusion, but Cece was the first to realise. "Ah, it's the blueprints to the mansion," Beedee confirmed with a nod of the head. SJ took a deeper look. "Oh yeah, I can see the room I met your mother in." He pointed with a spongy finger at the small square on the blueprint. "It's not just the blueprints though," Beedee emphasised. "Tati Tassin claimed something about it holding information about some bread people." Beedee thought back to the conversation, making sure she had given the right information. "The breads," she called them. Cece looked over at Beedee curiously and then returned to the blueprints. "How interesting," she spoke to herself. "Hold on a second, there's something written in another tongue." Beedee span the blueprints around to her, and sure enough, the words "La gente de la reina, nuestros esclavos" could be seen, if you squinted at the writing. "I know this tongue," Beedee beamed. "Mother taught me it when she could spare a moment for me these past few years. I believe she called it Genoise's tongue, as that's the tongue my grandmother was born speaking." Beedee's smile faded when she took a closer inspection at the words. "What's wrong, Beedee?" SJ asked in concern. Cece and Cinna both shared a look of worry. "It says the flower people were slaves." Cece squeezed her eyes shut in pain. The words stuck in the air like a bad smell. Just that one word confirmed everything they already knew. Victoria had to go. No one who knowingly condones the forced enslavement of a group of people should be in power. "Wait," Cece's words broke the silence. "I have a book written in a similar tongue." She left the table and headed to a door by the counter. She opened it to a dark hallway, but she must have known what she was looking for as she quickly returned with the book. Cece slowly pushed the book into Beedee's hands and then grimaced at her own, as if she had just grabbed a bag full of rubbish. Beedee turned the book the right way round and read the title, "Los Caminos de la Gente de Reina," "The Ways of the Flower People," she whispered, almost inaudibly. "What is this?" she demanded, forcing the book down onto the table with a loud thump. "I don't know," Cece raised her hands defensively. "I didn't know what it said, I just like collecting books." Beedee relaxed her shoulders. "It's written in Genoise's tongue, so my grandmother must have written it. Maybe there's something in here which can help lead us to the breads." SJ tilted his head, perplexed. "Why would we need to find them?" he asked. Beedee slapped her face with her own hand. Of course she had forgotten to tell the others about the full discussion she'd had with the servants. After a couple of minutes of filling the other three in on what was said, they all nodded in agreement to the plan. That was to bring a bread to the party and force Victoria to acknowledge her dark cover-up. Beedee felt dirty opening the book. She had no idea what horrors lay within the words. The first page was almost entirely blank, with the exception of the words written in Genoise's tongue. So it was true. It was Genoise who had written the book. How could somebody Beedee once admired be so vile? It was no wonder she had started to conflict with the group called the Cookies. Perhaps she had planned to do to the cookies what she had done to the breads. The next page seemed innocent at a glance, but Beedee read the first line in a tongue her friends could understand. The flower people are not to be mistaken for cakes. They are uncivilized and insist on believing in the nonsense of higher beings. Beedee looked up, unsure whether to continue. She decided she had to in order to find answers. They are not made of the same matter as cake. They are rather crusty, if I'm to put it politely. Their faces are smothered in flour. If you ask me, they are not fit for viewing. Beedee couldn't do it. It was too heart-wrenching. All those hate-fueled words made her sick to her stomach. I know it's hard, Birthday. Cece smiled reassuringly. But we promise you that you're not reading this alone. SJ nodded. Yeah, we are here for you, Beads. Beedee laughed in response. Beads? She asked. Sorry, I'm just trying something new. SJ shrugged, pleased to have broken attention. It took a while to read a lot of the pages, and in the end they almost decided they were never going to find answers they wanted within this small book. There were a few illustrations as well as words which took all four of them by surprise. One particular drawing depicted what must have been a bread wearing a large ornate crown atop their head, attaching itself to their shoulders. Beneath the illustration was the word pharaon, pharaoh. Beedee translated the word. What's a pharaoh? SJ asked, intrigued. I suppose it's what the Breads call their leader, Cece wondered aloud. What do we call our leader? SJ queried. He had never really thought about what to call Victoria before, aside from, well, Victoria. Well, I don't know about you, but I call her a piece of... Beedee coughed and looked over disapprovingly. Cece continued to curse under her breath. You can call her what you want, SJ, but she isn't my leader, Cinna claimed, placing a hand on SJ's shoulder. This made sense to SJ, so he let his thoughts pass. Why would he worry about Victoria? Oh, there appears to be a word next to Pharaoh I can't quite translate. Beedee sighed. Cece walked around to the other side of the table to join her and looked at the word. Aish Baladi is capitalized. Perhaps it's a name. This made sense to Beedee as she familiarized herself with the name. Pharaoh Aish Baladi, leader of the Breads. SJ smiled. I like that name. It's much better than a common name like Strawberry. Everyone nodded in agreement. There were far too many strawberries around. The tart's expired sister was called Strawberry Jam. He didn't admit it, but a part of SJ was thankful she went, as hearing their shared name all the time would be nothing but confusing. Anything on where to find them? Cinna asked, breaking SJ from his thoughts. Nothing. Beedee flipped through the book in frustration. There's nothing here, she screamed as her flame grew larger before simmering back to its normal size. Beedee quickly checked on her sleeping friends. Somehow they were still asleep aside from a slight stir from pumpkin pie. Beedee threw the book onto the floor and growled in frustration. It's not your fault, Birthday. She couldn't tell who had said it. She was too upset. Beedee couldn't think of anything but how her grandmother had put those poor people into a position no one should ever be in. The words written in the book screamed from the pages and infiltrated her mind. Beedee fell to the ground, curling herself into a ball and trying not to cry when something from the book caught her eye. Is that... She reached over and pulled the book towards her. Sure enough, on the 2 pages was an illustration of the woods, the very same woods Beedee had walked through to get back to the cafe. I know where they are hiding, Beedee smiled, jumping onto her feet. They are hiding in the woods. Come on, let's go now. SJ was the first to ask. Now? Are you sure? It's dark outside. Beedee laughed. It's never dark when I'm around. She pointed to her flame. It was decided Cece would stay at the cafe to keep an eye on the place and the people sleeping who were none the wiser. She would fill them in the morning. That left Beedee, SJ and Cinna heading out into the woods. It was tiring work, walking around the woods in the dead of the night. It was cold and Beedee was thankful to be able to warm her hands with her candle as she wrapped herself in her cardigan. "What do you think they look like?" Cinna asked unexpectedly. "Who?" Beedee asked. Conversation was not the most important thing on her mind. "The breads. They must look different to Genoise. To think of them as different." SJ scoffed at the statement. "What does it matter what they look like? They are still people." Cinna turned to SJ, feeling a little ashamed. "I know, but what I meant," SJ glared at Cinna. "I know what you meant. They look different, so they should be treated less than anyone else." The sudden change of character made both Beedee and Cinna jump. "I'm sorry," SJ closed his eyes. "It's just everywhere I look, on every corner there's a cake, and I'm reminded I'm not a cake, I'm a donut, living in a city run by cakes. I know I'm different, and I don't belong. I was comfortable with that. Why do you think I hid it for so long, kept to myself?" His large red eyes held his sadness. "When Victoria told me I was just like her, I don't know what I thought, but I knew it wasn't true. I don't want to be different. I do want to fit in, but as myself, not as someone I'm not, and I'm not a cake." Beedee forgot about the cold and hugged her small friend. "SJ, you are perfect just the way you are. We love you, don't we, Cinna?" She smiled. "I don't really know him." Beedee snapped her head round and shot Cinna a glare. "I mean, yeah, you're great, SJ. I'm sorry that I made you feel like that. I know the Breads are just people like us. I just don't know how they will react to seeing us." Neither SJ or Beedee had given thought to that. What if the Breads didn't want to see them? It was understandable. There was a reason they were in hiding. How would they react to 3 people, 2 cakes? Actually, was Cinna a cake? He looked cakey, but his name was Roll. Either way, 3 strangers. One who is definitely a cake, though right now she was ashamed to admit it. Beedee knew deep down that the situation and injustices the Breads had faced were the fault of the cakes, but she had lived with them for 2 years, and many of the things she had been taught by them had shaped who she was. Part of Beedee was Victoria, and that scared her. When she saw the Breads, would she feel the same towards them as her grandmother? Wait, Beedee thought. Was it really 2 years? She had just taken her mother's word for it, but she could swear it was longer than that. "Oh well, every day is a birthday," Beedee said aloud, not meaning to. "Sorry, I just got wrapped up in my thoughts." "Hey," she stopped abruptly. "What's that?" They were back by the log, the same log SJ and Beedee had hidden in to escape Blondie and Brownie. Beneath the log was a crack no larger than the width of a pen. Something about the crack piqued Beedee's interest. It looked almost unnatural. Beedee jogged over, forcing the boys to quicken their pace to keep up with her light. She crouched down ready to lift the log. "Do you need any help?" Cinna asked the moment Beedee had placed her fingers under the chocolate bark. "I can do it. I have fire in me. Well, on me. Anyway, it's a part of me." She then lifted the log with ease, impressing Cinna. Beneath the log lay a large patch of grass sitting on what looked like a sheet of metal, almost covering a hole. Beedee looked at the boys. "Well, looks like we found their hiding place." Metal bars attached themselves to the wall leading down into the dark tunnel. An unlit torch sat on the left wall. Beedee grabbed it and placed it to her head, setting it aflame and illuminating the tunnel. It was long and seemed never-ending. The trio walked slowly towards what they hoped would lead to what they searched for. Beedee was thankful she wasn't wearing some restricting gown and laughed. "What's so funny?" Cinna asked curiously. "Sorry, I was just picturing my mother walking down here in her massive dress." SJ burst into a fit of laughter. He remembered back to when Victoria had struggled to just sit herself down on a chair. "Who goes there?" The voice echoed through the corridor. The trio froze in place. They knew the Breads would be down here somewhere, but they didn't expect to encounter them so soon. The person left the darkness into the light of Beedee's torch. "I said, who goes there?" As the person approached, Beedee looked confused. This person looked nothing like the book had described. For starters, this person was not crusty. Their skin was soft and shiny. It was so smooth, Beedee had to resist running over and touching it. The man wore armour, a full set of armour possibly to ensure his soft skin was protected from any attack. "I'm Birthday." Beedee motioned for the boys to introduce themselves. "SJ." The man in armour shook his head. "Full name, please." It was then that Beedee recognised this man as having the same accent as Milfoy. "Strawberry jam-filled donut." SJ tried again. The man looked over to Cinna. Cinnamon roll. The man relaxed. Beedee thought about giving her surname but decided not to. She had an inkling that the breads wouldn't appreciate knowing a cake was in their midst. "Vaitier," the man demanded before walking off back into the darkness. No one spoke for the few minutes that the man had disappeared. "You," he said, coming back into light, pointing at Cinna. "Me?" Cinna asked, confusion. "Come with me. Pharaoh will only speak to you. Your friends can wait here." Beedee and SJ both nodded that it was okay to leave them there, and Cinna walked away with the guard. Cinna was led through a large golden door into a room covered in gold from ceiling to floor. The room was cavernous. In fact, since they were underground, it was very possible there had been a cavern. Illustrations decorated the wall on all manner of colours, telling stories of times that had been. On one wall, the shape of two giant hands could be seen squeezing some dough-like substance in a silver bowl. Further along, a box was shown with a small window illuminating orange, with the dough inside. Then Cinna was told to kneel. He did as he was told and looked over to see someone sitting in a large chair before him. Cinna would only assume this was the Pharaoh. "Welcome," the Pharaoh said, encouraging Cinna to stand. Pharaoh was covered in gold, which stood out from their dark, sandy skin. Something about Pharaoh seemed almost two-dimensional, as if they had been squashed between two walls. "What brings you to Ardu al-Sid Abturad?" Cinna blinked, having no clue what had just been said. Pharaoh laughed, and so did the armoured man. "Brioche, you may leave us. This one is no threat to me." Brioche bowed his armoured head and headed out back into the large cavern and possibly to guard the doors. "That was Arabic, my friend. It roughly translates to a land of bread underground." Cinna had no idea what Arabic was, and he didn't even need to ask. "You see these illustrations?" The Pharaoh pointed with a large blue staff to the illustrations adorning the wall. "These tell us of how we came to be. We were created by beings called Homo sapiens." Cinna was entirely lost. "You believe these humongous created us?" Pharaoh gave a good laugh. "No, I know they did. You see, when they make what they refer to as food for the first time, its energy manifests here, as a person. I know because I remember." Pharaoh tapped their head with a finger. "I remember being born. Do you, Cinna?" Cinna's eyes widened in shock. "How do you know my nickname?" he asked, concerned at what else Pharaoh might know. "Knowing how we came to be allows me to be in tune with the world around me. I know everything there is to know, Cinna. Ask me anything," Pharaoh challenged with their eyes. Well, will our mission be successful?" Pharaoh gave a knowing smile. "Do you know what your mission is?" they asked. Cinna felt on the spot. "We came to take a bread to a party to expose Victoria as the horrific woman she is." Pharaoh's face became void of emotion for a moment. "If I told you how it ended, my friend, you would not continue." Pharaoh banged their staff on the ground twice, and a small woman ran in quickly, bowing to Pharaoh. "Balani, what have I told you about bowing to me? Only guards need to bow, and even then I don't force them to. I'm no more important than anyone else here," Pharaoh claimed, sitting on their large throne. Balani brushed herself off. "Sorry, Pharaoh, how can I help?" Pharaoh replied in another unknown tongue, and shortly after Baloney left. "That was Persian," Pharaoh smiled. Baloney re-entered with Beedee and SJ at her heels. "Come, my friends, come in." The pair walked in silently, taking in the breathtaking sight of the Pharaoh. "Pharaoh Aish, we came to," Beedee began. "I know why you've come, Cake." Beedee gulped. "And you were very welcome here." Beedee had to blink several times. "Yes, that's what I said, birthday." Beedee, whichever you prefer. Beedee thought about that for a moment. "Birthday. Only SJ gets to call me Beedee." SJ gave a smug grin to Cinna, who sulked. "For now," Beedee confirmed. Cinna returned a smug grin. "Gentlemen, will you stop with your antics? We have important business to discuss," Pharaoh boomed. "Now, about which bread to send with you?" The trio's eyes widened. "But, sir," Pharaoh banged their staff on the floor. "Not sir, not ma'am, not king, nor queen, just Pharaoh." "I am just Pharaoh," There was no malice in the way they spoke. Beedee nodded her head in apology. I'm sorry, Pharaoh. I only know of you what it claims in the book. Pharaoh sighed. The book is wrong. You know that. You are wise. You haven't lived 2 generations to learn nothing. Beedee shook her head in confusion and laughed. 2 generations? That's ridiculous. She turned to SJ, who froze in shock. He was supposed to hide this from Beedee, and now here it was out in the open. Is there something I should know? Beedee asked, looking lost. I'm sorry, Beedee, but Granny Eccles swore me to secrecy. Pharaoh inspected the situation. Nothing to be ashamed of, birthday. Many of my people are on as many as their 4th generation. Everyone comes back once they mould, or, as you say, expire. So long as you exist in the Homo sapien world, you will be safe here. Now onto the mission at hand. Beedee stepped backwards as her head began spinning. She felt dizzy and weak as 1,000 years' worth of memories returned. She saw it all from birth to expiration. She saw her teaching Genoise the language of Spanish, which she would later refer to as Genoise tongue. She saw her fighting the cookies and forcing the breads into submission. She saw her write the book. She saw her befriend the newly created Victoria, and she saw herself expire. A lifetime of memories of the atrocities she had committed. It overwhelmed her so much, her candle went out, and she collapsed right before Pharaoh's feet. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to keep on track with this story. And to see more stories like this, don't forget to give it a like if you liked the video. Comment down below, share, all of that good stuff. On Thursday, I'll be releasing the accompaniment to my Hunchback of Notre Dame retelling, which will be based on the theme of hidden disabilities. On Saturday, I will be releasing my my short story based on Arachne the Spider Woman from Greek myth, and on next Monday, I'll be releasing week 2 of my Terms I Learned This Week series under the queer umbrella. No, what? Under the queer umbrella series. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you all soon. Bye.